Part 1, the day everything stopped breathing. It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday, the kind of warm California afternoon where the sun painted golden stripes across the sidewalk and the sound of kids playing blended with the hum of lawnmowers. I was inside fixing a leaky kitchen faucet when my son, Elijah, 12 years old and asthmatic since he was 5, ran out front to join his friends. His inhaler was clipped to his waistband, like always. Maria, my wife, was prepping dinner. Our dog Taco barked once, then settled back under the table. Everything was fine, until it wasn't. I heard the scream through double-paned windows and copper pipes. High, sharp, panicked. I dropped the wrench and sprinted outside. Elijah was on the grass, gasping, wide-eyed, clutching at his chest. And standing over him was her, HOA President Karen Whitmore, holding his inhaler in one hand and a walkie-talkie in the other. "You can't play on the grass without registering as a guest," she snapped. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, nearly slipping on the lawn as I ran toward them. "He's not listed in the visitor log, and per HOA Rule 17.4, unregistered minors are subject to removal." "He lives here, that's my son." She blinked. "Oh, well, then he should still be wearing the community-issued ID badge," he wheezed. I reached for the inhaler. She pulled it back. "Sir, I need to confirm residency before releasing medically sensitive equipment." "He's blue!" Neighbors had begun to gather. Someone shouted to call 911. Maria was suddenly at my side, already dialing. That's when Elijah collapsed, and Karen, finally realizing the magnitude of what she'd done, just froze. The ambulance arrived in 3 minutes, but they were the longest 3 minutes of my life. When the paramedics took over, they asked me one question. "Who took the inhaler?" I pointed. Karen still stood there, pale and trembling. They asked again. "Was it forcefully removed?" I nodded. She snatched it right off his belt. And that was the moment the tone shifted. From rescue to investigation, Elijah survived. Barely. He spent 2 nights in the pediatric ICU. Oxygen tubes, steroid injections, beeping machines. Maria never left his side. I spent those nights talking to the police and to a lawyer, because Karen didn't just delay my son's medication, she endangered his life. And in California, that meant something very serious. Attempted murder. Part 2. The investigation begins. It didn't take long for word to spread. By morning, everyone on our street had heard. A few came by to drop off meals. Others just stood on the sidewalk awkwardly, unsure of what to say. The local HOA Facebook group exploded overnight. One neighbor posted, "This can't be real, right? Karen wouldn't take a kid's inhaler, right?" 10 minutes later, another replied with a blurry screenshot from a Ring doorbell cam. There she was, Karen Whitmore, arm outstretched, inhaler in hand, Elijah gasping beside her. Proof. The police followed up that day. A detective named Ramos sat with us at the kitchen table. He had kind eyes but a voice that told you he'd seen the worst in people. "Mr. Adam," he said to me, "we're classifying this as felony child endangerment, but the DA is reviewing whether it qualifies for an attempted murder charge." I stared at him. Attempted murder. Yes, sir. Withholding life-saving medical equipment, especially during a documented emergency, can fall under that statute in California, depending on intent. Maria gripped my hand. I said what I'd been holding in since the moment Elijah collapsed. Good. Karen's initial statement was, as expected, delusional. She claimed she hadn't realized the boy was in distress and that she confiscated the inhaler as it could have been a non-compliant medical device. Seriously, she treated an emergency inhaler like it was a rogue hoverboard. But it got worse. She also claimed she was following HOA policy. "There is a clear mandate," she told the responding officers, "that unauthorized medical devices must be verified to maintain visual harmony in public spaces." Visual harmony. The term would become infamous. By day 2, our story made local news. By day 3, it hit national. CNN ran a headline, "HOA president accused of withholding asthma inhaler during child's attack." Twitter went wild. Hashtags started trending. Just visual harmony gate, Dursin let him breathe, and the particularly aggressive George Karen tried to kill. People showed up outside our home with signs that read, HOA, Sharky, hands off asthma. Jacob, Elijah's older cousin, designed shirts that read, "I carry my inhaler and my address. Happy now, Karen." He sold 2,000 in 24 hours. But not everyone was supportive. Karen had her defenders. A small but loud group from the HOA board rallied behind her. They issued a statement. President Whitmore acted in accordance with community guidelines to maintain safety and compliance. Our lawyer responded with a statement of our own. No rule book supersedes a child's right to breathe. It went viral. And that same evening, the district attorney's office made their decision. Karen Whitmore was officially charged with attempted murder. Part 3, Karen goes to court, and the internet explodes. The day Karen was arraigned, the courthouse parking lot looked like a music festival, if the music was rage and the fans wore asthma awareness bracelets. Maria and I kept our heads down walking in, but Elijah, he wore a t-shirt that said, "Let me breathe" in bold orange letters. He held my hand and asked if he could speak when the time came. I told him, "If they let you, say it loud." Inside the courtroom, Karen sat beside her lawyer, a man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She wore a gray blazer, a tight bun, and an expression that screamed, "I'm the victim here." The judge didn't seem impressed. "Ms. Whitmore, you are being charged with felony attempted murder, felony child endangerment, and obstruction of emergency care. How do you plead?" Karen stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor, and I'd like to state for the record that I was simply enforcing HOA protocol." The prosecutor coughed a laugh. "Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A, video footage of the defendant withholding a prescription inhaler from a gasping child?" Karen's attorney whispered frantically. The judge sighed. "Bail is set at $50,000. Trial will begin in 6 weeks." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. One asked Elijah how he felt. He looked up and said, "Kinda scared, kinda mad. But mostly, I want no kid to go through that." The clip went viral within hours. Even The Daily Show picked it up. "When your HOA thinks asthma is a violation of property values," the host joked, showing Karen's courtroom sketch with laser eyes. Petitions launched. To remove Karen permanently from any HOA position nationwide. To pass Elijah's Law in California, making it a felony to interfere with access to life-saving medication. Within 72 hours, the petition had over 500,000 signatures. Meanwhile, Karen tried to do PR. She went on a morning radio show to share her truth. It didn't go well. "I simply didn't know the child was in respiratory distress," she said. The host replied, "He was blue." The call ended early. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. The DA refused. The night before the trial, Elijah asked me something I wasn't ready for. "Dad, if she goes to jail, does that mean she gets what she deserves?" I paused, then answered, "No, son. It means the world finally listened to someone like you." Part 4. The trial of the century, or at least our neighborhood. The trial began on a Monday, but it felt like a national holiday. People wore orange in solidarity with Elijah. Local bakeries sold Breathe Easy cupcakes. Even the courthouse janitor wore a pin that read, "Let him breathe." Maria and I sat together in the front row. Elijah stayed home. His doctor didn't want him under stress, but his seat was reserved. A small inhaler sat on it like a silent witness. The prosecution came out swinging. They laid out a timeline, played the ring footage, presented medical testimony. Elijah's blood oxygen was at 76%, the ER physician testified. Below 90% is dangerous. Below 80% is life-threatening. He was dying. Karen's face tightened. Her lawyer tried to object. The judge waved him off like a mosquito. But the most powerful testimony came from me. I took the stand, adjusted the mic, and told the story. How I heard Elijah scream. How I saw Karen holding the inhaler like it was contraband. I didn't think. I just ran. My son was turning blue, and she was holding the one thing that could save him like it was a toy. The room went silent. On cross-examination, Karen's lawyer tried to paint me as emotional, irrational. "You said you were angry." "I was. My son was dying." "You threatened Ms. Whitmore." "No, I begged her." "That's different." When it was Karen's turn to testify, she brought props. She held up the HOA handbook like it was the Constitution. "I was just following policy." The prosecutor stood. "Can you point to where in this handbook it says you can withhold a child's medication?" She flipped nervously. "Page 17, I think? Let's read it together. Decorative lawn ornaments may not exceed 24 inches. The courtroom laughed. Karen blinked. Objection? Her lawyer whispered. Sustained, the judge said, but smiled. Closing arguments hit hard. The prosecutor, Karen Whitmore, made a choice. Not a mistake. A choice. And that choice nearly killed a child. Karen's lawyer, this is a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by social media hysteria. The jury left to deliberate, and 22 minutes later, they returned. Guilty on all counts. Karen gasped. The gallery erupted, and I, finally, exhaled. Part 5. Sentencing, social change, and a new law in the making. Sentencing was set for 2 weeks after the verdict. 2 very long, very surreal weeks. Karen, now out on bail, stayed locked away in her house, blinds drawn tight. Her lawn, once obsessively trimmed to HOA specifications, had begun to brown around the edges. A flamingo lawn ornament mysteriously appeared one morning, wearing a tiny inhaler. No one claimed responsibility. Meanwhile, Elijah's story continued to grow. He was invited to speak via Zoom to students in New York, a health conference in Texas, and even a middle school civics class in Oregon. He always said the same thing: asthma is invisible until it's not, and no rule should stop someone from breathing. The day of sentencing, we returned to court. The room was packed again, this time with more supporters than reporters. Elijah came with us. Karen walked in wearing black and a face like she smelled something foul. The judge didn't waste time. Ms. Whitmore, you were found guilty by a jury of your peers on all counts. Do you have anything to say before I issue sentence? She stood. I believe I was mischaracterized. I never meant harm. I simply tried to uphold community standards. The judge stared. You upheld your ego, not the law. You endangered a child and showed no remorse. He sentenced her to 5 years probation, 18 months house arrest, 1,000 hours of community service at a children's hospital. The gasp that followed was loud. Karen turned pale. Someone in the back whispered, "Justice with a twist." Outside the courthouse, the DA pulled us aside. We're drafting something, she said. It's called Elijah's Law. It'll make it a felony in California to obstruct life-saving medication from a minor in any public or private setting. Maria covered her mouth. I asked, will it pass? She smiled. With the way people are responding, I'd bet my pension on it. That night, our house was quiet again, and for the first time in weeks, Elijah slept without nightmares. Part 6. Karen's house arrest, community redemption, and the rise of Elijah's Law. Karen's house arrest was monitored by an ankle bracelet and the watchful eyes of 67 neighbors with lawn chairs, iced tea, and more free time than ever. A Facebook group called Karen Watch gained 20,000 followers in 3 days. Every time Karen peeked through the blinds, someone posted a blurry photo with captions like, "The inhaler menace returns," or "Visually harmonic glare detected." She quickly became the face of everything wrong with unchecked HOA power. Memes flooded the internet. One popular GIF showed Karen holding up Elijah's inhaler, only to be blasted by a cartoon asthma-powered super kid labeled Justice. But while social media feasted, we focused on something else: Elijah's Law. State Senator Marquez officially introduced the bill in Sacramento. Maria and I were invited to the hearing. Elijah wore his best suit, still with sneakers, and sat proudly between us. Today, the senator said, we hear from a young man who survived because of his resilience, and from a family who turned injustice into impact. Elijah stepped up, voice calm, steady. I couldn't breathe. And someone with power didn't care. If this law stops even one person from doing that again, then it matters. Tears, applause. The room gave him a standing ovation. Within a week, the bill passed committee. Within a month, it passed both chambers. The governor signed it into law on live television. Elijah's Law was real. Back home, life didn't magically return to normal, but it evolved. Neighbors smiled more. The HOA dissolved. In its place, a volunteer council formed with one core rule: kindness before policy. Karen, ironically, became a ghost in her own neighborhood. 1 month into house arrest, she tried to plant a new hedge. 3 people called the city to make sure it didn't violate Elijah's Law. It didn't, of course, but she stopped halfway through. One morning, Elijah found a note on our porch. It read, "I can't undo what I did, but I see now how wrong I was. I'm sorry. K." He read it, folded it up. Didn't say much, but he smiled. Part 7. Moving forward, one breath at a time. Summer rolled in quietly like a gentle breath, unlike the gas that had once defined our days. Elijah was back to biking with friends, his inhaler always clipped proudly to his belt. Neon green now, with the words "Let me breathe" engraved on the side. His classmates treated him like a local hero, but he didn't let it get to his head. He just wanted to breathe, laugh, and build Lego cities again. Maria and I started leading community workshops on empathy, emergency readiness, and yes, how to not weaponize rules. The sessions filled up faster than we expected. People didn't just want revenge on Karen. They wanted to grow. The new community council, now fully volunteer-run, met twice a month under the oak tree near the playground. Their motto, painted on a wooden sign, read, "People before policies." As for Karen, she finished her house arrest in silence. The Karen Watch group disbanded after someone posted a meme too spicy, even for the internet. Her house eventually sold and she moved out without fanfare. Just a dusty "for sale" sign and a few leftover flamingo figurines on her porch. No one celebrated her leaving, but no one mourned it either. Elijah's law became a case study in schools, a civics project, a public health win, a symbol. And Elijah? One evening, as we sat on the front porch watching Taco chase fireflies, he turned to me and said, "Dad, I think I want to be a lawyer." I blinked. "A lawyer?" He grinned. "Yeah, the kind that makes sure people don't get hurt or ignored." I looked at him. The kid who once almost stopped breathing because of a rule, now breathing strong, dreaming big. "That," I said, "is exactly the kind of lawyer the world needs." Part 8. The legacy of a breath. And a boy who refused to be silent fall came in with golden leaves and the smell of promise. Elijah started high school. The first day, a teacher pulled him aside and said, "You're the reason we have an emergency inhaler policy now." He smiled. "Glad to help." Maria cried in the car after drop-off. Happy tears. Relief tears. The kind that come when the storm has passed and you're finally allowed to feel everything. As for me, I built something in the backyard that summer. A bench. But not just any bench. It was made from reclaimed wood, metal from an old lawn sign, and yes, parts from the inhaler clip Elijah wore the day it all changed. Welded onto the backrest, a plaque. "In this spot, we remember that silence is never safer than speaking." People came by to sit on it. Some asked questions. Others just closed their eyes and breathed. 1 year later, we were invited to Washington, D.C. Elijah was honored at a national health and safety conference. He wore a blazer 2 sizes too big and shook hands with senators, nurses, teachers, even a former president. When he stepped up to speak, I thought he might freeze. Instead, he said, "I used to be afraid of my asthma. I used to hide it. Then someone tried to take my inhaler, and now everyone knows what it is. That's power. That's change." The applause lasted longer than his speech. Afterward, a woman from Oregon walked up with her daughter. "Because of your law," she said, "my school now stocks emergency inhalers. You saved lives, Elijah." He blinked, said softly, "I just didn't want to die." Back home, Taco chased squirrels again. Maria planted marigolds. I stopped checking the porch for hate mail. And Elijah, he started a podcast. It was called Breathing Room. He interviewed kids, doctors, teachers, even the city official who once laughed at HOA complaints for a living. Every episode ended the same. "Take a deep breath. You're allowed to be here." It went viral, but more than that, it helped. Sometimes people ask us why we didn't move, why we stayed on that street, in that house, where everything happened, and we say, because this is where our son stopped breathing and where he learned to speak.